The gospel can be found on page 1187 in the Bible. The gospel is from Mark chapter 7, beginning with verse 1, page 1187. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the gospel according to Mark. Now when the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around him, they noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands, thus observing the traditions of the elders. And they do not eat anything from the market unless they wash it. And there's also many other traditions that they observe, the washing of cups, pots, and bronze kettles. So the Pharisees and the scribes ask him, "Why do your disciples not live according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" He said to them, "Isaiah prophesied rightly about your hypocrisy, you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines. You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition.'" Then he called the crowd again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside a person that is going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile." Please go to verse 21. For it is from within that the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, and folly. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. The Gospel of the Lord. Every year it seems that some part of the United States and some countries of the world experience a shortage of water, and the pollution of sources of drinking water plagues rich and poor countries alike. In California and all along the West Coast, they have been experiencing a drought on a routine basis. And then along with the droughts comes the wildfires that destroy homes and property in a large area. Sadly, people die of thirst and starvation in areas of famine in various parts of the world each day, even today. As we heard, as you may be well aware of, the Jews who lived in the Holy Land in the time of Jesus were no strangers to the hardship of water shortage, but they never skimped on washing people and things. And so the evangelist Mark makes a big deal of telling us in our gospel. He tells us that the Jews even liked to sprinkle the food that was brought home from the marketplace before cooking it. And the reason for all of this ritual washing was that for the Jews, external washing symbolized their desire for internal purity before God. So when the Pharisees accused Jesus' disciples of eating with unwashed hands, they were really accusing them of impiety. But Jesus knew that no external washing of one's hands, nor any external action, ever gives a foolproof description of a person's heart before God. Jesus shared the belief of the Israelites that the heart, not the head, is the true center of all human emotions, of thinking, of willing, of acting. Jesus knew that the heart was at the center of the human person, psychologically and spiritually. And I think we know it too. Just think of the common expressions, let's get to the heart of the matter. My heart isn't in it. Let's have a heart-to-heart talk. These expressions tell us that in our day we also know that the heart represents the center of our being and our emotions. But the human heart can drift away from God. Jesus knew that even though some people paid God lip service, their hearts were really far from God. Many centuries before Jesus, Moses had given the Israelites the excellent example or excellent means of offering God heart service. The commandments, the precepts of the law for their instruction. But centuries went by and the observances had become lifeless for some people, and most in the time of Jesus, some people were keeping them only so that they could be seen doing what was the correct outward action, but not keeping them from the heart. And so it happens in our hearts in our day. We can easily and gradually allow our hearts to develop hateful and destructive habits that drift us away from what Matthew Kelly calls the best version of ourselves. We develop perhaps bacteria of the heart. Bacteria of the heart. And for a number of reasons, we start saying and doing things that show us at our worst, not at our best. So that is the reason, perhaps, for the stern versions of Jesus about what really defiles a person. Not food. Evil thoughts from the heart. The evil that carries our hearts slowly but surely away from God. From within people, from their hearts, comes evil thoughts, unchastity, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, licentiousness, envy, blasphemy, arrogance, and folly. In a beautiful way, God brought our heart very close to the divine heart by our very baptism. That external washing purified our heart and made us daughters and sons of God. Through the power of God's Holy Spirit, which we received in baptism, we are empowered to overcome all the evil that can still come from deep within ourselves. But we must accept this divine power for good. St. James tells us about every worthwhile gift, every genuine benefit comes from above, descending from our Father in heaven. St. James says that the word that has been planted in you is able to save your souls. That joyful light of God's presence is never shadowed over, but is really, it's always there to fill our hearts, to fill the hearts of those whom God has claimed and cleansed through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. While there may be a shortage of water for lawns, there is no shortage of God's generous love and grace for those who give their hearts over to God.